All right, YouTube, Repo Man 64 out here in the secret broadcast cave. We're in a very high emotional time right now. A lot of things have been going on. Uh, Charlie Kirk was killed, and it has brought a revival unlike we have ever seen. People are going to church. We can only pray that when they go there, that they just accept the blood of Christ alone, and they are not told that there's something they must do to prove it, like be baptized or walk in front of a church or start, doing or whatever. It's the blood of Christ and Christ alone. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing added to it. It's that simple. That road is very narrow. Very few understand that. They push a gospel of you've got to do more than just that. And we just take that cup, we drink from it, and we trust Jesus to save us because what he did on the cross, not what we did by getting baptized or we did by doing good works or anything we did. When you add we to it, you lose that. You just don't get salvation. You don't get it because you don't get it. And so a lot of things are happening. We have this guy Joshua that has had a visit from Jesus himself and told him that the rapture is going to occur on September the 23rd, 24th. I will be watching on that day because until that day passes, I cannot, and I won't even judge him afterwards because a great revival is happening because of that date. And I think throughout history, we see the apostles were standing there waiting for Jesus to return. We're always waiting for Jesus to return. We've been waiting for Jesus to return for 2,000 years, but we're up against a time constraint. That time constraint is about finished. We are in a Jubilee year, and Israel is 77 and will be 77 until May 13th of 2026. In 2029, something very unique happens, something I didn't even see or understand until recently. I have always said that Jesus went to the cross on March 30th in 30 AD. Using the 0 year, it would appear to us to be 31 AD, but it was 30 AD. It had to be 30 AD, and they'll argue back and forth, but the fact is, King Herod died in 4 BC. Jesus would have had to have been born in 3 BC, what we call 4 BC. The time is off because of this Catholic monk in 525 AD that created the concept of BC and AD. Had he not done that, we would have been in the year, I forget what it is, 6028 right now, or 6027, according to the Jubilees. We call it 6028 because of that 0 year. I like symmetrics. I like math. I like the fact that God gave us dates, time spans in the Bible. He did it on purpose. He did it so we could sit down and figure this out. And that's how my mind works. That's where I see God. Others see God in other ways, like Joshua had a visit from Jesus face to face, all by himself. And in 2018, he was told that the rapture would occur on September the 23rd, 24th of 2028. Now, for me, I have to put it on a timeline. That's what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. I have to build a timeline to see if it, in fact, will match according to what we see in the Bible. When Jesus was born, mathematically, you should be able to go forward and backward from his birthday and land on events that the Bible says are there. these events are symmetrical and unchangeable, just like God. God is symmetrical and unchangeable. He created math, and when he did it, it was perfect. And it is perfect. I love math because it it shows to me anyway the workings of God. So when Jesus was born, there had to be a date he was born. There had to be a date that John left in the womb. There had to be a date when Jesus was conceived, and there had to be a date when Jesus was circumcised and named. In Jewish customs, children are circumcised and named 8 days after they are born. Jesus was born on September the 30th. He was not born on September the 11th because 8 days later, you have no event. He was not born on Hanukkah. You do have an event 8 days later, but if you count back 280 days, you do land on September the 11th, which is the first day of creation, but you have no event 8 days later. All four events must fall on the timeline. And the only way that happens if Jesus was conceived on December the 25th, John leapt in the womb on New Year's Day, Jesus was born on September the 30th, and 8 days later on Shemini Atzeret, Jesus was circumcised. We know that Israel was attacked on Shemini Atzeret. This timeline matched the Jewish timeline in 2023. At the end, the timeline will either match in the last 6 months or in the first 6 months. It'll never match all year long because they follow the moon. They will always be within 6 months, 5 days off. Something happens in 2029, though, which like I said, I hadn't noticed. And then when I realized it's happening in 2029, like it did in 2023 for the end or the last 6 months of the year, this time it lines up in the first 6 months of the year. On March 30th, not only, now this is so rare, but not only that does it match the timeline, which says Jesus went to the cross on March 30th, but the Jews say that March 30th is Passover. Very rare. That rarely ever happens, but it does in 2029. The church itself, not the Church of the Bible, but the Catholics and all the other churches view Friday as the day that Jesus went to the cross. I believe they call it Good Friday. This is for them the date that Jesus went to the cross. And then, of course, Easter would be what they would call Sunday, but that's Saturday, so that's 2 days away. So mathematically, it doesn't work. That being said, March 30th is a solid date. What will happen on March 30th? According to the Bible, we will see Satan on this erroneous timeline, which just turns out to be accurate for the year 2029, walk in and proclaim himself to be God. He will only do that on Passover. He will he always has. He's always tried to take over what God has done. Like people, I created this dresser. No, you didn't. You didn't create a dresser. You built a dresser that God created a tree from. That's what you made. You did not create a dresser. You needed the building blocks that God created in order to make anything. And that's what Satan is misunderstanding. Satan believes that he can go in and just rise himself above Jesus on March 30th and proclaim himself to be God. So we have an anchor date, period. That date is going to happen. Prior to that happening, we must see the two witness for 1,260 days and then lie dead in the street for 3.5 days, 84 hours. In order to see that, we have to count back from March 30th, 1,263 days. The 3 days are for the two witnesses. And when we do that, we land on October the 14th or October the 13th. That's the last possible date in order for all of this to work, in order for all of the time to function properly. It has to happen by October the 13th. We still have a problem. October the 13th is not symmetrical. We have to have a date of when the two witnesses rise, when we have to have 1,260 days, which has to land on a date that's important. And we have to have them lying in the street for 3.5 days and them ascend on a day that's important, all encompassing a numerical number before and after that are biblical. So it wouldn't be like 6 days. It wouldn't be like, 12 days. Well, 12 would be symmetrical, but, 23 days. It wouldn't be an odd number. It would be like 14 days or 15 days, something to that effect. It would be a symmetrical number. So when I am beginning, what happens to me? And it's not important what happens to me. It really is not important because this just happens to me. It happens to a lot of people, actually. I've seen their timelines and they're amazing. And I love everybody's work. And I don't discount anyone's work. Just in lieu of my work, I don't discount anyone else's work. But what happens to me is numbers start flying around my head and patterns begin to appear. It's weird. I don't know that I would wish it on anyone because it's time consuming and it takes up my thought process all day long as my mind begins to symmetrically put the dates down and I start calculating. And ultimately, when so much of it comes in, I actually have to build a timeline. Now, I built a timeline for a segment of time. I built a timeline for the entire year of everything that happens during a year. It's absolutely symmetrical and, in my opinion, cannot be refuted because of the distances between these dates. Like I said, Jesus was born on September the 30th, which is the first day of Tabernacles. But in this year, the year, and Kevin went into Stellarium and looked it up. In this year, Hanukkah, because of the way the Jews keep a calendar using the sliver moon, it moves around every year. And in this particular year, Hanukkah landed on Feast of Trumpets. I said that backwards. Jesus was conceived on Hanukkah. And in this particular year, Hanukkah landed on Christmas Day. So that does happen. Likewise, in 2029, March 30th, the day of the cross, will land on what they call Passover. It's strange how it landed, but it does. And Satan is not going to miss an opportunity to show up at a time and proclaim himself to be God on a day, any random day. No, he's going to choose the day that Jesus did that. I would imagine, and I haven't asked Kevin, and I should, but I would imagine in 30 AD that the date of the cross likewise matched Passover on the Hebrew calendar. I don't know that for certain, but it would have matched. Now, I built this timeline, and I want to show you how symmetrically the dates, again, this is how my mind works, will line up with a specific day, keeping in account the day that the two witnesses have to rise. Moses is dead. He's one of the two witnesses. The Bible says so. He was at the Mount of Transfiguration. They didn't mistakenly call him Moses, and it turned out to be Enoch. It wasn't. It was Moses. There are two witnesses. One is dead. One has been alive, Elijah, since then. They were set apart for a purpose, to be the two witnesses during this period of time. They will prophesy or witness for 1,260 days. So one would think the day they rise would be important because the day they rise is the day the rapture occurs. Because we've heard over and over again from Mr. Bones that the dead in Christ rise first. I don't think just the dead in Christ rise. I think more than just the dead in Christ rise. They do rise and they go to heaven, but I think others rise and don't go. We've seen verses in there where some rise to everlasting glory, some rise to shame, and some rise to everlasting contempt. We have a group of people that rise to heaven, a group of people that rise, but they're shamed because they stay here. They have a chance now to see Jesus face to face and either accept him or deny him. And then we have another group that will rise. They'll never accept Jesus. I think that's Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot will be the Antichrist. On that day, it has to land on a day that is important. The day that they die should land on a day that is important, a day that we see on a timeline. A day now, because it does match in 2029, will actually hold value that no one can argue. If Jesus went to the cross on the 30th, that means his triumphant entry was on the 26th. That means his meal with Lazarus, Mary, and Martha was on the 24th, because the Bible records it was 6 days before he went to the cross. And then the meal with Simon the leper, the Sadducee or Pharisee, happened the night of the 25th, coming into being 4 days from the cross, and that's when he had his head anointed. All of these things are interwoven. And the more I added to the timeline, the more it interwove. So I'd like to show you this snippet of time, 3.5 year snippet of time, and see if you see what I'm seeing. Okay, let's see here. Oops, I did not mean to do that. Okay, there we go. All right, here we have the timeline. Now, let me see something here. I feel like Zoom meeting. Let me see something here. I feel like I lost. Nope, I still have audio. Okay. I didn't hear a beep, so I figured I had it. So, all right. That's going to be annoying. Hold on a second. I don't know how to make it. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Technology and me do not mix. In 2029, they will say, there's 2029. In 2029, they will say, we have three witnesses to March 30th. Not only this timeline, which is static and it never changes, March 30th is always Passover, but the Jews will recognize March 30th as Passover. And the church will also, or the Gentile church, the Catholic Church, will recognize this as Good Friday as well. They will call this Good Friday or Passover. So that's a solid date. That's what they say. That's what everybody says. That's what I say. That's a solid date. March 30th at 3 p.m. I believe Satan will go in and proclaim himself to be God. The triumphant entry, 3.5 days earlier, Jesus goes into town 4 days earlier, March 26th, the triumphant entry. These are the events of Lazarus. Lazarus fell ill on March 13th. Mary and Martha sent two messengers to Jesus on March 14th. On March 16th, it takes them 2 days to get there. I know this because the Bible records that Jesus sat still for 2 days and then he walked for 2 days to get to Lazarus. So if it takes him 2 days to walk over there, it took the two messengers 2 days to get to Jesus. When they get to Jesus, Jesus admits that Jesus calls him sleeping. That's what we look like to God when we die. We're just sleeping. It is appointed unto man but once to die, and this happens at judgment. Either you're going to go to the lake of fire or you're going to go to heaven. On March 16th, Lazarus dies. Jesus admits there are 12 hours in the day, and then he sits still for 2 days. Why does Jesus sit still on the 17th and 18th? Because it's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day feast. Trumpets is a 1-day feast, but it is the day that no man knows the day or the hour, because we do not have two witnesses proving September the 15th as trumpets, because we don't have that second witness. We only have one witness. We have the the star of Algenib skirting along the horizon. We do not have the day of equal parts like we do in March 16th. We have the day of equal parts and that star. Those are our two witnesses. It's not two guys standing outside with binoculars looking for a sliver. That's not what's in view. The Bible actually calls them faithful witnesses. The sun, moon, and stars are faithful witnesses. The moon's purpose is to bring blood moons and eclipses. It is not to bring the head of a month or the head of a year. It doesn't do that. But ironically, in 2029, the moon will be a faithful witness because it is actually accurate every 19 years. And this will be no different. In 2029, the moon will verify that Passover is on March 30th. So in that instance, the moon will line up. Like I said, it does it every 19 years. Now, Jesus sits still for 2 days because it's Rosh Hashanah. That's why he doesn't move. God changed Rosh Hashanah before he gave all the feasts to Moses in Exodus 12. He said, this now is the head of your year. This is also, we find in the book of Enoch and in the Dead Sea Scrolls, where he says, on the day equalized, that's the last day of the year, on the day equalized. The next day, March 17th, is the head of the year. It is the first day of the year. It is Rosh Hashanah. This is why Jesus sat still for 2 days. And then Jesus walks for 2 days from the 19th to the 20th, and Jesus raises Lazarus on March 20th. Now, in order for us to figure out when the rapture might occur, I'll say this, these dates are solid. They are not changeable. And so we must see 1,260 days. We must see that. So we have to go backwards from the cross, 1,260 days. And we have this extra time in here. But in order for it to be symmetrical, they must land. The start date must land on an important day. The day they die must land on an important day. And the day they ascend must land on an important day. So I said, I have 3 events that must be symmetrical in order to count it as the day of the rapture, the day the 2 witnesses rise. The 4th is a cutoff point of October the 13th because remember, the witnesses have to be dead for 3.5 days. They have to witness for 1,260 days. And the cutoff point, the latest possible, is 3 p.m. on March the 30th, because that is Passover. That is the day Jesus went to the cross. That's the day of the crucifixion. So 1,263.5 days earlier is October the 13th. So what I did to be absolutely and completely non-biased and to take me completely out of the equation, and I put all the dates down here. They fall on a static timeline. Trumpets, what I call trumpets, is today. Today is the Feast of Trumpets. Today would have been an ideal day for the rapture to occur. However, I didn't notice this or realize this. It's only 2/3 symmetrical. I only have 2 out of the 3 events that I need to land firmly on the timeline. So trumpets, being September 15th, we count 1,260 days to when the witnesses die. There is no event. I showed this last time, but I didn't realize it. There is no event on February the 25th. Nothing happens on February the 25th. But if we count 3.5 days later, it's Purim. It's a perfect day for them to rise. So I have it's starting on trumpets. I have 1,260 days landing on no event, and I have them ascending on Purim. So timeline number 1 doesn't work, is not symmetrical. Timeline number 2, the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement is on September the 24th. It only has 1 out of 3 symmetrical events. It does start on atonement, so that is good. It goes 1,260 days until they die. They would have died on March the 7th, which I have no event. I don't think anybody does on March the 7th. And 3.5 days later, they would rise on March the 10th. I have no event for March the 10th. I have nothing. So that is not a good timeline for the rapture to occur on September the 24th. all emotions aside from what everyone is seeing, eliminate emotions, just doing the math, the rapture cannot happen on September the 24th. Now, Jesus is born on tabernacles. Remember, he's born on September the 30th, and on October the 7th at sunset, or October the 8th, 8 days later, he is circumcised and named. This is the day that Israel was attacked in 2023. This is also a date that the calendars lined up in the second half of the year. So in 2023, it did line up. All that year of 2023, people were like, wow, your timeline works. And then suddenly, as soon as they eliminated 20 days or 10 days out of the calendar, I suddenly didn't line up anymore. In spring of 2024, they just made 10 days, I believe it was, disappear, 14 days, just absolutely disappear off the calendar. And they started the year on March the 30th. 14 days later, on April the 13th or 14th, they called it Passover. It's weird how in 2023 it lined up for that very crazy event that took place on October the 7th, the day Jesus was named and circumcised, the day that Israel was attacked. And it does it yet once again in 2029. Now, if we go to September the 30th, we have 3 out of 3 symmetrical events lining up. Tabernacles is the day Jesus was born. It is an event that would work out very well for a rapture because it is on the timeline as one of the 7 feasts. We go forward 1,260 days, and the witnesses die on the day that Lazarus falls sick. Lazarus falls sick on March the 13th. The 2 witnesses are sent out on March the 14th. They arrive at Jesus on March the 16th, and Jesus admits that Lazarus is dead, and he says, are there not 12 hours in the day? Randomly says that. This would look like a very good day for the 2 witnesses to rise. We have 3 out of 3, but I don't like it. I don't like it because wouldn't it have been ideal that the 2 witnesses die on the same day that Lazarus dies, and then Jesus raises Lazarus on the 4th day or 3.5 days later? Depending on the time of day, 3.5 days would equate to, because most of the day would be used up, would equate to what they would say 4 days. I believe all of these events. I think Jesus in the grave was 84 hours. I think the 2 witnesses was 84 hours. I think Lazarus was 84 hours. I think Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 84 hours. I think it's all 84 hours. And I think it is all pointing to Israel being 84 years old, which they will be in 2029. And 84 years old is when Jacob marries both Leah and Rachel. He marries Leah. 7 days later, he gets Rachel. We know that he's 84 because he leaves Esau, runs from Esau when he is 77. You can go do the math. Bible clearly says he works for 7 years for Laban in order to marry Rachel, but winds up with Leah. And Laban says, give her 7 days, and then you can have Rachel too, but you will work for me for another 7 years. So in 2025, I might have just said that wrong. In 2025, Israel is now 77, and 7 years later, in 2029, on May 13th, Israel will still be 84 years old. They'll be 84 until May 14th, where they will turn 85. So everything falls within that time. We have exactly 14 days. I probably should have put it on here. Just realized I didn't. April the 13th as being the day before they turn 85. So there's still 84 right in here. So we go to the last one. This one, it dawns on me when I'm working this out. I'm like, why? are the two witnesses dying on the day Lazarus got sick, but rising on the day Lazarus dies. Doesn't make symmetrical sense. Even though I have three symmetrical dates that line up, I have this. Um, sorry, September the 30th, three symmetrical dates. But then I decide, well, what if, I don't even know this is accurate, but what if the two witnesses do rise, but they don't begin their ministry for 3.5 days? They begin their ministry on October the 3rd. This is my favorite scenario, that the rapture occurs on September the 30th, but the two witnesses don't begin to witness for 3.5 days. After 3.5 days, they witness for 1,260 days, and they die on the day Lazarus dies. And Jesus raises Lazarus on the fourth day, 84 hours later. Lazarus rises on March 20th. What if that's the day that the two witnesses also rise? Then it gives 10 days from March 20th to March 30th for Satan to go in and proclaim himself to be God. 11 days if you're counting inclusively, which means chaos. So that's my favorite. Both of these right here, both of these timelines that are both 3 out of 3 symmetrical make sense. This one makes more sense, but both of them equate to a rapture on September the 30th. Again, this is just math. Now, the last possible date, there is no further date that this can happen. Otherwise, Israel being 77, Israel being 84, all the Passover being on March 30th, Satan going in and proclaim himself to be God, the two witnesses, all of this absolutely falls apart, completely falls apart if we go past October the 13th. Nothing will make sense after October the 13th of 2025, but it is the last possible day for any of it to work. And it kind of is actually, October the 13th means nothing on the timeline. But and I don't have 3 out of 3 symmetrical dates on that. So October the 13th means nothing on the timeline. You go 1,260 days, and we land here on March the 26th. So that is symmetrical. We have one. March the 26th is the day that Jesus rode in on the donkey. That is the triumphant entry. And Jesus goes to the cross and dies on March the 30th, the day I believe Satan will go and proclaim himself to be God. Why would the two witnesses rise on the day that Jesus dies? It's not good symmetry, but it is symmetrical. I don't particularly like that day. We see that the meal with Lazarus happened on the 24th, and that was 6 days before the cross. My absolute favorite, symmetrically, is September the 30th, and the two witnesses take 3.5 days to begin their ministry. I don't know why they would wait 3.5 days, but I can't confirm biblically that their 1,260 days begins immediately on the day they rise, but I believe the rapture is going to occur at sunset on September. Now, remember, Jesus, I believe, was born on the 29th after sunset. The numbers keep working out to the 29th in the evening. So it would appear that perhaps after dark, at some point, even 9 p.m. actually is the most symmetrical hour that I can show that Jesus was born at 9 p.m. on September the 30th, just becoming the night of September the 29th, becoming September the 30th. So that is the most symmetrical time I can find and understand. And the reason is because Jesus gave up the ghost on the cross at 3 p.m. And so that would be, 6 hours earlier. So my absolute favorite rapture, this only has 1 out of 3 symmetrical dates. Nothing makes sense with this date. I hope it is this date. I hope that God, in fact, visited Joshua 7 years ago in 2018, and he has held on to this information for 7 years and is now telling us that the rapture will occur in 2025 on September the 23rd, 24th on what he's calling trumpets. I will be watching on that day. And if that day passes, my high watch day will come at sunset on September the 29th. I just don't know if anybody knows why the two witnesses might wait 3.5 days. If they don't wait 3.5 days, if their ministry starts immediately, it doesn't really make sense down here why their ministry would end when Lazarus gets sick as opposed to when Lazarus dies, and why they would be raised to heaven 3.5 days later, as opposed to when Lazarus actually dies, gets sick here, he dies here. Why would the two witnesses um, fall dead in the street and then rise on the day Lazarus dies? It would make more sense that this event, and I didn't see it until that's why I build timelines, because I did not see it until I put it down on paper, and it dawns on me. I sent a message to David the Watchman. I sent another message to Brett from God's Down Under, and to my little group with Spinebreaker and Tony. That is very interesting. When I began building the timeline, I'm like, I like this date the most, but October the 3rd seems to be when they start their ministry, but there's nothing here. There's no event. I can't tie it to an event aside from the 84 hours. That is big, but why doesn't anything happen on October the 3rd? So I'm sitting here. Either way, the rapture should occur on September the 30th. I like the 3.5 days because of the 84 hours. I don't like the day it lands on because I have nothing on that day, but I love it down here. I don't love it that they die, but the Bible says that they die after 1,260 days, and it's the day Lazarus dies. And the Bible says after 84 hours, 3.5 days they rise, which again, depending on the time of day, 3.5 days would be 4 days. Depending on the time of day, 3.5 days would be 3 days. That's why they say Jesus was dead for 3 days. It was actually 84 hours. It was actually more because of the time that he died. He gave up the ghost at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The day was well spent. After 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they already begin to count the next day. So Jesus dies on the cross at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but he rises at 3 o'clock in the morning on April the 3rd, which is exactly 84 hours later. So that's what I have so far. This is what I've been working on for the past few days. And I just, of course, noticed today that when I was building this, that, to me, the best scenario is that the 1,260 days land on the day Lazarus dies, and 3.5 days where they lie in the street and everybody said, we know the celebration is going to happen. Thousands of people, hundreds of people, thousands, I don't know how many, are posting that they're so happy that Charlie Kirk has died. It has sparked such a revolution. My kids have me in these timelines and my knowledge and ask me nothing. They believe, but they don't ask me anything. But I came home last night after work at 10 o'clock at night, and my kids are sitting in the living room watching everything Charlie Kirk. And they were like, this is amazing. I watched, he's the guy, I didn't know this, but he's the guy that started the table at the campus that says, prove me wrong, or something to that effect. He's the guy that I didn't know that was him. I have seen Charlie Kirk and some of his stuff. I flipped through Facebook and he's there, but I don't really. What he's working on are new believers. I kind of work on timelines with old believers. I don't work on timelines with new believers because they wouldn't understand any of this stuff, and that's fine. That's his piece of the puzzle. But it's awesome that my kids are actually in there with my grandkids watching everything Charlie Kirk. So a revival has been sparked. That is huge. That's means something big. And so that being said, Satan just can't do right. This guy just can't do right. He crucified Jesus on Passover. What was he thinking? He sparked a revival. He sparked the salvation of the entire world when he did that. And the same thing is happening again with Charlie Kirk. Even what's going on with Joshua. A lot of people are giving their lives to Jesus. Is it genuine, or are they going to a works-based church to do it? I don't know. If they are putting the horse before the cart and accepting, I am saved, you can ask 99% of the people will tell you, oh, I'm saved because I go to church. I'm saved because I got baptized. None of them are saved by the blood of Christ. They're all confused and wrong about their salvation. The people who are predestination. I don't even know why you would have a YouTube. Why do you have a YouTube channel? Why are you wasting your time on a YouTube channel? Salvation is by grace. Salvation is a free choice. A cup is offered. Salvation is predestined in the eyes of God. We can't see predestination because we are not God. He already knew who would do this. And so in the people who are predestination, they will say, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. You're going to accept him no matter what. So then why do you have a YouTube channel? Why are you even promoting Jesus whatsoever? What's the point? If they're going to get saved, you just kind of sit back and trust that the ones who are going to be saved are going to be saved, and the ones who aren't are just going to die and go to the lake of fire, right? No, every human being on the face of the earth is offered this cup of salvation, and every human being will deny this cup. They'll either do it now or they'll do it during the tribulation. They're going to be offered a cup during the tribulation. That's it. And then if they take that cup and drink from it, I was talking to the guy from Mission for Christ. He said they were watching one of my videos when I took a cup. I don't even remember doing this, but apparently I just downed it so fast I spilled it all over myself. I don't recall the video, but he said him and his friend were watching it and they both grabbed a cup of water and just splashed it all over themselves because that's how badly they want salvation. And the only salvation they're looking forward to is the salvation where they trust in Jesus and Jesus alone. And everything that's in that cup of salvation is from Jesus and Jesus alone. They are not trusting in their works, which is why these people are not saved. But during the tribulation, they're going to recognize that they are not saved and they're going to drop to their knees and they're going to accept the Lord. So, all that being said, I don't know when the rapture is. Mathematically, the highest watch date I can give you is September. It's even higher than September. It's even higher than today. I thought today was really good because it starts off with trumpets and it goes on down. But then I realized, wait a minute, there is no event on February the 25th. Just this 3.5 days where they're dead. And then they ascend on Purim. I thought, oh, that's not too bad. But when I sat down and did the math, and prophecy is pattern is prophecy. This is the best pattern I don't find any pattern for September the 24th, Day of Atonement. I do find pattern for September the 24th, Day of Atonement after, at the end in 2032. I find plenty of pattern for that day. I don't find it now. Before, I do find it for Jesus' birthday. How many people have sent me an email saying, that's my birthday. I hope it happens on that day. What a birthday gift. God is no less. Jesus is no less. What a birthday gift that we would all have the same birthday as Jesus, September the 29th at 9 p.m., becoming September the 30th. What a day that would be, that we would all share Jesus's birthday. What a day that would be. I don't know if that's the rapture day. It's 3 out of 3 symmetrical, but October the 3rd, if the two witnesses wait 3.5 days, 84 hours to begin their ministry, which makes sense, still falls on a day with no event, but it still is 3 out of 3 symmetrical. And this would tie back into this as being the day of the rapture and the day the two witnesses come back, the day Moses comes back, the day the Antichrist, Judas Iscariot comes back. They all come back on this day and they begin doing whatever they're going to do. The only time frame we're given is for the two witnesses, 1,260 days between the rapture and the day that they die. So it must fall within the time of the rapture and the time Satan goes in on March 30th to proclaim himself to be God. And in fact, it does. We run slap out of time by October the 13th. So, and it doesn't even match mathematically. It just doesn't match. The best match I have for you is September the 30th. I will be watching the rest of the day today. because it's a high watch day. And I will be watching September the 24th because Jesus visited Joshua, and that will be quite the day. But there will be there will be this day, if this day passes, 23rd and 24th, it is going to be absolutely disheartening for an entire planet that is not actually saved. If you're actually saved, I don't care how you feel when a date passes. You're saved. I don't care. If one of these dates that you're seeing, September 15th, September 24th, September 30th, um, Charlie Kirk, if any of these events or dates drove you to your knees to accept the blood of Christ, and you drank from that cup, and that cup alone, you didn't think, oh, I've got to get to church and get baptized. Otherwise, this stuff doesn't stick. If you are of that mindset that you just accepted Christ and Christ alone, you will go in this rapture. I don't care how disappointed you are that a date passes. And quite frankly, when the date passes, you ain't going to be that disappointed because you know you're saved. I've been doing this for a long time. Talk about disappointment. I have had many. Today is disappointing. Are you kidding me? Today is passing. What happened? Why aren't we raptured? What's going on? But it doesn't cost me my salvation. My disappointment doesn't cost me my salvation. And if you were on the fence thinking, oh, I'll wait till that day, first of all, that's dumb. Second of all, if you did just think that I would go in and get baptized because that saved me, well, they're saying millions of people are getting baptized. That's great. But did they accept the blood of Christ alone? If they did, then they're saved. I don't care how disappointed they are that the date passes. No part of me cares. I'm hoping that because of Joshua and his date, that many of you went to a quiet place by yourself. Nobody needed to know, and you didn't need to tell anybody, and accepted the Lord. And I say that because of Matthew 6, 5, and 6. Don't do it publicly. Do it quietly between you and your Creator. You don't need a public show to prove to everyone that you're saved, because then you're not saved. You need to do this quietly, privately, between you and your Creator. And if this date passes, I will be completely confused. I will not be unsaved on that date any more than any other date. Something will come and something will show us. And finally, Amos 3:7 will not be fulfilled by me and my timelines. They will not be fulfilled by Joshua and his visitation from Jesus. They will not be fulfilled by Charlie Kirk dying. They will be fulfilled by God himself. The fact that Charlie Kirk died, to be honest, that is the biggest. The whole planet is marching and accepting Christ and turning to Christ. The Muslims have got to be furious right now. They have got to be absolutely furious that this martyr has been created. Who killed him? I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracies running around. I don't get involved in conspiracies, but whoever did blundered big time. If you were trying to keep a planet away from Jesus Christ and his teachings and out of the Bible, you messed up big time when you killed him, because they are my own kids. They are running in droves to the Bible and to everything that Charlie Kirk has been teaching and learning more about, becoming more intimate with Jesus. Are they turning their lives over to the blood alone? I don't know. But there's nothing wrong for anyone to learn more about Jesus and what he did. So I'm very excited, not excited that he died, but I'm very excited about what's happening because of it. And God will do what God will do in order to bring more in. So it is awesome that this tidal wave, this tidal wave of things that are going on right now are going on. It's amazing to see what's happening. So let's pray that today is the day, that September the 23rd, 24th is the day. And if we make it, and again, Amos 3:7, we're going to be told by God something massive. It's awful quiet out there lately, and every time it gets quiet like this, something huge happens. So, the waves and the seas roaring is all we need to see. Damascus, we don't know if that's for us or if that's after the rapture occurs. But the waves and the seas roaring are written in Luke, and that's kind of all we're waiting to see. And one huge earthquake would cause that waves and the seas to roar. So God is ultimately going to fulfill Amos 3:7. We can do all the math and all the calculations in the world, but nothing is going to warn us like Amos 3:7 will. And it's not going to be given to one individual, to me or anyone else to give to you. He is going to come boldly, and you will see it. And I know he is. Otherwise, this revival that we're seeing going on with Charlie Kirk I would have never expected this. That is huge that this is happening. Maybe that is what the warning was. I think he went on the 10th, right? And September the 30th would be what, 20 days. I don't see any symmetry in 20 days. I kind of do in 21 because of the Prince of Persia being the angel being held up for 21 days, but I don't inclusive it would be what, 21 days, but I don't that might be some math there as well. But we're all going to see this Amos 3:7. Ultimately, we're going to see Amos 3:7. So, all right, let me get off of here before this goes too long. This, I believe, is some good math for the tribulation saints to continue on after this to see what happens to them by 2029 and subsequently what happens to the Jews by 2032. And I will go in and continue this timeline after this to match up to. I kind of want to continue it after if we get past September 23rd, 24th, before September 30th. I will be more confident on this date, and I can do better math once I know when the rapture is going to occur. But I have to do this not knowing when it's going to occur. But if we get a warning, I will come right out here because I will know exactly when all these things will take place, and I'll complete this timeline to 2032. All right, YouTube, Repo Man 64. We will chat with you again later. I have today off, but I have to work for the next 4 days. But and I have to get up early tomorrow morning to go to work. But if anything, if anything happens, I will come running back out. We're down to the last moments. I hope it's in 9 days or 8 days, whatever they're saying that the rapture is going to occur. I hope it is, but I guess we shall see. We will chat with you all again later.